Welcome back to the latest episode ng Deep Dive. Ito ulit yung ating FYI special series. Ang dami nangyari since elections, including the latest State of the Nation address. Let's start with our very good guest. Thank you so much again, by the way, joining us. Ano pangalan niyo ulit, sir?
And Tapia.
Of course. Thank you very much, Shervin. And of course, Dean G. Thank you for joining us. If I'm not mistaken, you were there at the SONA, right? State of the Nation address. So what was your sense of this SONA compared to previous SONA and the president's both communication strategy and his cadence, I would say, even of...
Well, I think in general, I think it was a direct response to the results of the midterm elections. No, I think he focused on issues that resonated more with ordinary people. That's why he talked heavily about social services, including education, etc. So, in a very large manner, I think it was his way of communicating directly with the people. So that was my sense of the SONA flavor. And people were asking me if there was something controversial that he would talk about, like, for example, any position on online gambling or any position on ICC. It was quite noticeable, or impeachment. It was quite noticeable that he avoided those sort of divisive issues, and I think that set the tone for the entire speech.
And yung speech niya was mostly Filipino. Kaya in comparison kay Pinoy, di ba? It was like 97%. It's like barely there was an international community there. The way he talked, he just had a few English words here and there.
Yeah. Although I think I observed that they did have some translation thing going on, but my sense was that he was really directly addressing the people, no?
Right.
Because of the
Lalo
admission.
yung masa, no?
Yeah, masa talagang. There was some sort of admission that administration candidates really underperformed during the midterms. So parang bawi. It was really a bawi more than anything else.
Ikaw, Sherwin, what is your read? Because some people were thinking he should go big. Kasi pinaportray na siya as lame duck. The other side maybe is now regaining momentum, especially in light of the latest Supreme Court ruling, that he had to go big or go home, basically. And yet he did something completely outside the box.
Yeah.
What is your read of that?
Ako personally, I was expecting big issues yung i-discuss ni President. However, yun nga, I agree with Dean Ed that the President decided to really address popular issues. No? Aside from the midterm, of course, he's coming from a very low public approval rating. No? Siguro mga 2 months ago, di ba? So I think he recognized that, and judging from his previous interviews with journalists, di ba?
Yeah.
I think he recognizes that he needs to really put out some of the administration's initiatives kasi at his own admission, sinabi ni Presidente na people don't know what we're doing. So apparently, he admits that there is a communication gap somewhere. And there I can understand why the President decided to really focus on what we call gut issues. And I think he believes that this will resonate with the people. But of course, meron din naman siyang nilatag na legislative agenda, no? But di ba, you mentioned na 97% ng speech niya was all Filipino. So it's very obvious that he was really addressing the larger citizens, the larger crowd, instead of really policy makers. In general.
It was clear he was more talking to the masses because nung sinabi na meron na kaming 3-in-1 MRT for family, halos walang pumalakpak kasi wala naman yata nag-MRT doon sa batas. Di ba naman walang nagpa-public transport dito.
Tsaka yung nung sinabi niya na yung mahiya naman kayo, di ba? Yun ang lakas ng
we'll go to that part because I think he ended quite with some fireworks towards the end. Noon sa flood control issue, nag-real talk siya sa insertions at mahiya kayo. But we're talking about the 90% of the speech, which was more standard gut issues, important issues. Dean, I want to go to you because many people made comparisons to Pinoy for understandable reason. I found it more comparable to Bam Aquino. In fact, I was watching Bam Aquino's reaction, and I think his post-SONA reactions were quite positive. Why do I say that? Because if you look at Bam's strategy in elections, and even after was, wag muna tayo dun sa mga controversial issues, focus tayo sa mga issues na malapit sa mga puso ng tao, and at the end of the day, that could carry the day. So, and what, 45% was about education.
Yeah.
In fact, even the parts that were about food, kabataan, estudyante, education pa rin. Was that also a dig maybe at Sara? Because the Secretary of Education now is someone else and the idea is, now that finally may matino tayong DepEd Secretary and all, baka naman magagawa natin yung mga gusto natin.
Well, I thought before answering that, yung last SONA ni Presidente, it's really a difficult time
Right.
for him, no? Kasi prior on the SONA, I think you have this series of crises that happen, no? For example, yung kanyang biyahe sa Washington, D.C., which he's supposed to negotiate for a lower tariff rate, no? But he managed to secure a 1% lower that was...
Percentage point.
Yeah,
Kasi
percentage
daw
point.
5% yung
Yeah.
1% sa 20%.
And then of course, when he was in the US, nakita natin yung meron tayong 1 week, no? Na
Grabe,
pag-ulan. No? At that's why, again, lumabas na naman yung elephant in the room dito, yung usapin ng flood control. And then, Friday, before the SONA itself, no? Lumabas yung impeachment. So,
Yeah. Supreme Court ruling on the
Supreme Court
impeachment,
ruling,
yeah.
no, on impeachment. So, you will probably take note on how to recuperate from the 1 week disaster. So definitely, the SONA itself really is to somehow be responsive, no, to all the issues that have been thrown to you. So mukhang ganun ang naging tema ng SONA natin eh.
Right.
Halimbawa, yung sa usapin nga yan sa PhilHealth, yan sa usapin, for example, nga ng flood control, diba, sa the latter part, talagang hined-on niya. And of course, I was surprised dahil this time around, very pronounced ang statement ng ating Pangulo sa usapin ng corruption. No? Na hindi mo ini-expect. I really don't expect. No? Medyo yan yung ang Pandora's box na sinabi niya talaga.
Kasi it could hurt his potential allies.
Precisely.
Or, yeah, mag-ricochet. Yeah.
Ito siguro yung isa sa mga mabigat. Although, yun nga, overwhelming yung mga nangyari. Kaya, in effect, it's really difficult to articulate that kind of position. But going back to your question earlier, hindi ko napanood yung kay Bam Aquino, no? But I think if the tenor really is parang sort of merong Pinoy 2.0.
Right.
Nakita ko sa sinasabi nga ng mga tao because of, of his use of words, no? In particularly in Filipino, para mas makausap yung mga masang Pilipino at ipakita, for example, yung mga success and at the same time yung mga challenges. Siguro very candid yung ating presidente itong SONA ito. No? May admission ng kanyang kakulangan, pero objectively, medyo kinapos naman in terms of, how to move forward dun sa mga admission na sinabi niya, dun sa kanyang mga kakulangan. No? Na hindi nakakapag-connect maigi sa mga tao yung mga program. Hindi nga alam eh. Yeah. But of course, after that, ano yung mga specific pa. No? Medyo, yun yung challenges kasi.
Balikan natin yan, Dino. Kasi I'm trying to first understand, what was the strategy there? Because the sense I have was, this was BBM saying, I mean, first of all, wala si Sara doon, di ba? Parang wala si si Senator Bato, wala si... Parang feeling ko, it was BBM saying, actually, kung wala mga Duterte, ganun ang mundo natin, di ba? Statesman-like, we can focus on constructive issues. It was a way of him saying, maybe finally I'll have my time kasi wala nang election eh, di ba? This is his legacy years na eh. Parang he was kind of trying to give us a vision and understanding of what could be the legacy years if only you give him a chance to do what he wants to do for the country. Like, bigyan niyo lang ako ng panahon. Sana walang politika, gawin kong lahat para sa taong bayan. And of course, some took issue with this, but as correctly pointed out a while ago, hindi rin alam ng tao yung mga benefits na meron tayo sa PhilHealth. Hindi alam ng tao yung mga nangyayaring mga proyekto sa agrikultura, sa food security, yung mga, dealing with malnutrition of kids. So, in a way, was that also kind of a performative polite populism kind of thing? Yan, sagot namin yan. Yan, bayad namin yan. Do you think that was a little bit of a over hard sell, or do you think that was necessary?
I think it was. I don't think it's a hard sell. No, I think that's one of the strategies of the SONA that I particularly liked. Kasi if we go back, sabi niya, okay, there's an admission that there was something wrong in the way government is doing things. That's fine. Although he did say that macroeconomic indicators are fine. Okay yun. I mean, sabi niya, if you look at the data, we're doing good. However, the real question is, nararamdaman ba ng tao? That's one thing that I really liked eh. So it's the disconnect between macroeconomic data and lived experiences. To me, that set the tone of the entire SONA itself.
Which is better than Pinoy, right? Because Pinoy never admitted to that part. Remember, Pinoy would always talk about Philippine fastest growing economy, but yung lack of inclusivity.
Yeah.
This one, there was an admission.
Yeah, it
right?
was, and it was delivered at the early part of the SONA. So I think in that sense,
Right.
that set the tone for the SONA, and it was good. Kasi walang ano dun eh. There's no denying that people feel that that they're neglected, government is somehow disconnected from
Right.
them. And
Insensitive.
after laying the predicate, if you will,
Right.
of what government has not been doing properly,
Ito
then
yung
he
gagawin.
introduced
Yeah,
the things that he wanted to do.
Shouldn't he have Sherwin but diba, this is what we see in the both predecessors of his. Pinoy until his very last SONA was still blaming Arroyo, President Arroyo. Digong until his last SONA was trolling. Sabi niya, balita ko 3% na lang yung mga ayaw sa atin, yung ganon. That's what makes BBM very different, right? He almost never attacks the other side. But isn't it fair to him to say, actually maraming akong gustong gawin, hindi ko lang magagawa kasi nanggugulo yung iba dyan. Isn't that actually a bit, I don't know, too nice of him? Sana he does more of pointing out actually there are obstacles being put ahead of his fulfillment of his mandate.
Siguro, in the last 3 years, nakita na natin na ito yung estilo ni President Marcos.
Yeah.
Diba? Na hindi talaga siya
Confrontational,
yung confrontational. At Mr. Nice Guy nga to
Mr. Nice Guy, yeah.
no, to some extent. No? But siguro maintindihan din natin na I think the way I interpret it is that naintindihan ni Presidente na mahaba pa yung kanyang runway.
Right.
And by, identifying core issues na alam niyang legacy building issues, na like for example sa education. No, ang ganda nung sinabi niya doon di ba?
Right.
Na in the next year or 2 years, complete na yung connection ng mga eskwelahan sa internet,
Correct.
no? Napakalaking
Yung
bagay
laptops,
yan, no?
yeah.
And it was, if I may interject, very detailed yun. Ha?
Very detailed.
Very detailed. Not only education in general, but he talked about teachers, he talked
Yeah.
about students, talked about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Technocratic almost, I would say. He was technocratic.
And
Kaya-
post na interview with DICT, pati yung secretary ng DICT
Right.
sinasabi na by next year, ito na yung mga achieve namin.
KPI.
Yeah, oo. So very confident si Presidente na ma-address niya talaga yung digital divide in terms of education, ano? Pati nga, tama si Dean Ed, no? Pati yung sa teachers, pati yung sa content. So, he understands. Yun yung message,
Yeah.
di ba?
And
Naiintindihan ko yung
I don't
problema.
agree dun sa mga iba. Like, it says SONA. It's not supposed to be like a 200-page detailed. That's where the secretaries have to come in, which we'll discuss later. What you need to
Yes.
follow
Oo, kung
through.
ano yung diba?
Ano lang yan, grand vision. But even given it was very granular, di ba? It was quite a granular, relatively short speech. Ikaw din, what do you think about, again, Mr. Nice Guy, pero may mga patama rin, di ba? Including dun sa isang pamilya na,
Yeah.
kumbaga kung may star of the night na General Torre, right? That was a good
Kampiyon.
punchline.
Ang bagong
I knew
kampiyon,
exactly
ha?
what he was gonna do when he said, People's Champ, I said, it's gonna go towards the new champ.
Yeah.
That was funny, but may pinatamaan din siya ng mga, mga medyo Duterte-aligned senators dyan, di ba? What is your sense of the president's, again, Mr. Nice Guy approach, but with some spicy sprinkles here and there? Was it a good enough mix for you?
Well, from the very beginning, mukhang ganun talaga ang projection ni President PBBM. So it's somehow, pag you radically depart from that kind of persona, baka may hirapan din yung mga tao.
Off-brand masyado, trying hard.
On the other hand din naman kasi, people, as he mentioned dun sa kanyang speech, really looking for a concrete action. Medyo nasari din kasi yung ating mga mamamayan for the last 6 years na yung very macho politics na dapat ang daming mga strong statements.
Dapat nagmumura ka, diba?
O galit ka, no? Kaya parang term nila medyo yung malambya, diba? Medyo may ganong perspective. But if you try to dig deeper, for example, nga yung mga discussion niya, doon nga in particularly sa mga specific concern like yung education, again, it was mentioned nga, na very clear, very specific, no? Medyo nabitin lang talaga ako dyan sa usapin ng economic reforms na at least somehow,
You want to build on that? Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, so he admitted that hindi nagtitrickle down.
Yeah.
We're the fastest growing ASEAN, but so what, diba? Cost of living still high, a lot of issues with...
Anong data natin, for example, sa foreign direct investment? Medyo dismal pa rin tayo dyan eh. So, yun
Kulelat
ang
pa
mga
rin
concern
tayo,
ko.
yeah.
No? Kasi if you
Good
try
point.
to understand ngayon yung ating economic activities, saan ba galing ngayon yung ating mga economic activities.
So you should have talked about manufacturing,
Precisely.
semiconductors.
So how do you provide support on that? How to, increase the opportunity to make it more viable? So yan yung mga hinahanap. Kasi ang hirap mag-rely, for example, kung aasahan lang natin yung mga OFW remittance.
Tsaka yung pababain yung presyo ng kuryente.
pa
Actually,
yun.
yan yung isang
Marco Leto was there. Yeah.
disincentive yan.
Controlling the inflation, hindi lang kasi inflation ang problema. Yung mga sangasangang problema ng
Productivity ng society.
what the inflation
Yun nga,
brought
and
to us.
considering he just came from a visit to the world superpower, yes, I know he didn't get a lot of discount dun sa tariff, but he could have talked about new aid and investments that are at least in the pipeline, right? Dikit niya dun sa
Or perhaps,
infrastructure.
if I may interject, halimbawa, kamusta na ba yung mga pledges, for example, that been
I don't think he wants to talk about
precisely,
More like forward-looking, yeah.
I mean, kung ano na yung
Yeah.
development din ito. Kasi,
Correct.
if there's a good news, definitely, pagmamalaki ko yun. So,
Right.
ibig sabihin, baka hindi pa yung ma-materialize. So, in a sense, dapat din talagang
Correct.
yung ating mga, sino ba naka-assign dyan? Especially Assistant Vice President on yung kanyang mga investment advisor. So, paano ba i-realize itong mga new investors to bring in our country? So, yan yung
that's
mga
very
thing na
important
dapat pag-usapan din natin at hindi dahil na pag-usapan din sa SONA.
I think pwede niya sana idikit. Remember, he didn't discuss also West Philippine Sea because he's projecting neutrality. We were going to be ASEAN chair.
Yeah.
But he could have tagged it to say, next year will be the Philippines in parang
yun.
Global
Yeah.
Philippines Year. 'Di ba? Parang ganun yung branding sana eh. At doon, pag-usapan natin, making the Philippines a prime tourism investment. Feeling ko he missed an opportunity there.
Yeah.
At yun yung natural sa kanya, magaling siya sa ganun eh. Yung branding, technocratic, that was a big omission. That actually we didn't mention. Siyempre yung omission na inisip natin, yung rule of law issue, impeachment issue. But you're right, actually that would have been a great opportunity to say, global Philippines tayo next year as ASEAN chair,
No,
right?
I certainly agree.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
The SONA did not really delve that much on our presence in the international scene, no? Short of saying, yun lang, yung kanyang statement that the Philippines is friends to all, which is not really the first time, that's not the first time.
It's not even his own admin's
I
line,
know, but, and we've heard it quite a few times before. Medyo talaga yun, malabnaw, no? And he did not rally support for example, West Philippine Sea.
It's a very good opportunity.
We have to keep on talking about it because it's an existential threat.
Rules-based international order.
Rules-based international order. And then, of course, medyo may kurot sa puso sa masa, again, yung his way of thanking the governments who helped Filipinos who were on the brink of execution. That was, yung mga ganon. That was okay. Pero medyo kulang in foreign policy.
At parang hindi na-mention in Saudi Arabia. Bigyan lahat ng Gulf countries na-mention, parang wala lang Saudi, di ba? No, but, yun nga, like, that was a surprise omission. Like, yung ibang omission, parang alam ko na, hindi na sasabihin. But actually, that was a surprise, because this could have been his chance to present himself as a global statesman next year, as the ASEAN chair. I mean, Trump could come here next year. I heard Xi Jinping is considering coming here. So, di ba? Like, that's your chance, a global Philippines. But then again, this is also parang kumbaga, utos na yan sa mga departamento to follow through on that. Now, let's talk about the fireworks part. In fact, there was so hindi lang patama dun sa, I don't know kung isang company, Prime Water bang tinatamaan niya. Exactly, at saka yung flood control, which was really obviously a scandalous situation. Like, naalala ko yung first few hours pa lang ng ulan. Not in this area, but on the way to work sa TV5. Grabe yung baha already in Marikina, etc. So the number one question is like, parang lumala pa. What the heck is going on with flood control? What is your sense when yung flood control discussion niya and then mahiya kayo? Was that fireworks enough? And what should he do? Like, monitoring, sabi niya, there'll be more monitoring of these projects. Hindi ba dapat criminal liability even for yung mga kapalpakan?
Actually, of course, most welcome yung sinabi ni Presidente when he mentioned that, at saka yung hinamon niya, mahiya kayo, etc. And I think that resonated a lot with our people. Kaya lang, ako naman, ang concern ko doon is, what now?
That's right.
Diba?
What happens after?
What happens after?
That's a bigger challenge.
Diba? When you ask the DPWH, who is also part of the system, to monitor and to report, okay. Pero anong mangyayari afterwards, di ba?
Right.
For example, binigyan ko ba ng taning? Did I give a deadline to the DPWH? Tsaka matindi doon, Richard, yung sinabi niyang mga proyekto na guni-guni. No, na binayaran ng gobyerno, pero after na itayo, naguho o gumuho, di ba?
Yeah.
So how do we exact accountability dito sa mga taong ito? Siguro yun yung missing part nung
But isn't that what you were discussing? His dilemma
Yep.
that he could actually put his allies in the crosshairs, considering the other side of this equation.
Malakas naman yung palakpak.
Hindi, yung palakpak yung tip of the fingers daw eh. Hindi yung gumaganon daw yung
I just want to further stretch yung sinasabi ni Sherwin eh.
Yes, Dave.
Dun sa possible na pasabog dito. No? Kasi, you know, I think that will be an opportunity na kahit wala kang directing sinasabi sa impeachment, pero I think it will be better for him kung sasabihin niya na this time around, my government is calling for more accountability. So, kasi dinikit mo yun sa flood control, sana hindi lang flood control, even all types of corruption, abuses,
insertions.
lahat yun, sana, para at least ma-heighten natin talaga yung accountability issue. And that's why, to some extent, nasama doon na yung maling paggamit ng mga pondo ng gobyerno, may mga ganung articulation kasi that will adds up. No? For the elephant in the room nga ng flood control. Siguro kung na-stretch pa further ni PBBM yung discussion niya na involved, simpleng patamaan halimbawa yung nangyari dito sa recent Supreme Court ruling on impeachment na in a sense may ibang perspective. Pero you put premium on discussing na in my government talagang very, very serious on sa accountability.
Yeah.
And we're really give meaning on it. So,
because
siguro yung kailangan
Yuse Castro openly said they disagree with the decision of the Supreme Court, for instance, right? So parang my feeling is minsan masyadong malayong Mr. Nice Guy dun sa kanya mga spokespeople. So it has to kind of converge more. And yung feeling ko, yung mahiya kayo could be a good opening.
Precisely.
Because the next thing is, umayos kayo.
Yeah.
Because mahiya kayo is more like, oy, baka, pero yung umayos kayo, di ba? Like, it has to go to
At
the next
seryoso
level.
kami sa
Yes,
usaping
exactly.
ito.
But it's not
Yes,
beyond
Dave.
it's not beyond salvage naman eh. What I
Hindi,
think
not at all. It sets
yeah.
the predicate, as you said.
That's right. Yun na nga. But kasi ako I looked at it as his metaphor, if you will, for his anti-corruption drive. Yun yung naging
Yeah, of
vehicle
course.
niya eh. Pero hindi nga pwede, tama si Dean Gary, it should not end there. The bigger task now lies ahead. Like, are we expecting the formation of a task force that would investigate all of these
Para NTF, National Task Force. Yeah.
flood? Kasi obviously, they cannot investigate themselves. Hindi pwede yun eh. You have to have a third party looking
So
at
with
the issue.
Lacson, Senator Lacson could be part of this equation?
Something like that, or a special body that would do the heavy lifting of investigating all of these anomalies. No, but Dean Gary is right. It could have pivoted to related issues of corruption as well.
Let's talk about this. The next big thing everyone's watching out for is Ombudsman, right? Ombudsman is something everyone's watching because the concern with the outgoing Ombudsman was, to put it mildly, not much happened that should have happened. I'll just put it that way, baka ma-petition din tayo dyan. But there's high hopes that if the next Ombudsman is empowered, has the confidence of all relevant parties, could actually make certain big moves. Including vis-a-vis the vice president and other people. So how important is the ombudsman? Because that could send a very strong signal that President Marcos is serious about rule of law and accountability.
Yeah, kung may ensure yung independence ng ombudsman eh. Unlike, for example, during the past administration, na alam naman nating binuli-buli yung opisina, no? I think that would send a clear message, no? Na seryoso yung administration. Pero may dagdag ko lang, no? Aside from all of these suggestion na kailangan may person in charge or may isang commission to address corruption. Ako, kasi nung past two sonas ni Presidente, palaging nangingibabaw sa kanya yung digital transformation eh. Palagi niyang binabanggit yan. And pagka binabanggit yan, nakakabit yan sa transparency, accountability, and good governance in general. Eh. So, hindi lang ito, para sa akin, hindi lang ito usapin ng sino ang maglilid ng anti-corruption drive, pero ito ay sistema eh. No?
Right.
We need to really improve the system, no? Para, of course, we can guarantee na ma-minimize at least yung corruption.
If I may just
Please,
interject
sir.
dun sa question mo on Ombudsman, I think the question of competence should be paramount.
Yeah.
And to be fair to the nominees, they're all competent. But perhaps the president should appoint somebody who is not only competent but is also considered to be beyond without any political strings.
So are you
any
suggesting
political
it should not be a
connections.
current cabinet member?
Whatever it is, I mean, the person should not be perceived as somebody who would do the president's bidding.
Right.
That would
or
send,
be selective in pursuit of rule of
yeah,
law.
and that should
Yeah.
should send a very strong signal that the president will spare no one, even those who are perceived to be his allies.
Right.
Oh, if I may add on that discussion.
No, this is very important. Let's talk about
This is
Ombudsman.
very
Yeah.
important.
Very important. Very, very important.
I wish, I mean, the Ombudsman will be true to its mandate. No?
Yep.
For example, the recently retired Ombudsman, di ba? He is the one who come up with this policy na before you secure a SALN, you have to ask the permission to the person. So parang
Grabe.
nasa na yung public trust
Right.
mo. No? Parang how can you you are allowing someone not to be police, no?
Or shielding, basically, some would say, yeah.
Nawala yun eh, yung transparency, di ba? The
Yeah.
purpose nga ng Ombudsman is really to extract accountability. Paano malaman accountability kung yung primary basis, for example, nga ng isang government official, which is the SALN. Kasi yan yung, at least,
Right.
no, yan yung una mo imbestigahan eh, kung talagang may anomalya yung kanyang vis-a-vis sa kanyang trabaho at sa kanyang earnings. Pero ngayon, pinigilan mo yung taong bayan to check that. So, ako yun ang this should be reversed.
Very good
Whoever
point.
the next ombudsman, that, ano ba tawag dyan, executive order ba yan, o ombudsman order, be revoked, no? And ordered another one to open opportunity for yung access of yung FOI, Freedom of Information, no? Kasi lahat yan magkakabit yan eh, no? Yung ating accessibility to this information, transparency and accountability. So that will be a huge task, a Herculean task for the next ombudsman.
Is Conchita Morales our benchmark here? I mean, we're looking for good examples. We talked about not so good examples. Let's talk about good examples. Is that a standard benchmark?
Or even Samuel Marcelo, if I may add.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Before, no?
For people to have an idea, it's not like it was dark ages forever, right? We had some good times, right? Maybe, because we talked about Pinoy a while ago, maybe Marcos could also take a page from Pinoy administration and put a very competent, beyond
reproach.
like beyond reproach person, right?
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to interfere in the selection process, but do you see in the role of the candidates, in the list of the candidates, someone who could be like a Conchita Morales type of person?
Well, if it were up to me, I'd probably put in some more names there.
Okay. Justice Garvey. So just Justice Garvey, actually. No, but the Ombudsman is very, very important, right?
sure.
And okay, now this is the last part of our discussion, because we've been talking about the president and what the president should do, but whatever the president has to do is not within a vacuum, right? Because the other side of the equation is the Duterte side, who are saying lame duck na yung president. They're trying to make him look like a lame duck. There are also some extra constitutional forces, if I can put it that way, who want to create trouble and all.
Yeah.
There are people who are clearly weaponizing legitimate questions about corruption and anomalies to push actually for a certain political agenda. So what should be the way forward? Maybe I'll start with you, Dean, then go reverse. Kasi hindi ito in isolation eh. There is basically an existential war going on as we speak. Let's not kid around.
The president right now is really to reach out beyond
His immediate base. Yeah.
Circle of friends or political base. Eh. Kailangan talagang identify ngayon, especially hindi naman siya tatakbo for 2028, hindi naman siya allowed, according to the Constitution, is really to reach out with like-minded individuals or group, no, to rally his support. Baka ito yung opportunity for him to, to talk about not only to his vice president before, no, but rather to other individuals or group nga, no, na will advocate for a more strong institutions, a transparent government. Tingin ko yan, no? Tapos, kung mag-aala Pinoy siya, involved na yung civil society. Medyo yan yung walang masyadong involvement din sa gobyernong ito.
Yeah.
Baka in the next 2 years, to generate more people's support and participation, I think he opened perhaps appoint someone, no? Kung kailangan gumawa ng isang bagong posisyon or appoint someone na who will liaison to civil society groups, no, to grassroots movement, no, to directly deal with them. And this is And by telling to the people that, hey, my government is really for all. At open kami na pagsilbihan ng mga mamayan. At in fact, ito yung bago naming gagawin ngayon. No? We will reach out to different basic sectors. No? Yung mga grupo sa baba para namin makausap.
Okay, I'll really talk you on that. I
Yeah.
already see a couple of obstacles immediately. Like, for instance, on the minimum wage issue, I think there was, I don't think he even mentioned that, right? That's a problem. A lot in the civil society, I've interviewed some people on the platforms from labor groups who were very unhappy with what happened. There's a sense that the president was pressured by business groups not to give concessions on that front. I can imagine with some civil society groups, they're going to bring back the ghosts of Marcos dictatorship, not to mention issues of ill-gotten wealth. So how can he navigate those structural fault lines, if I can put it that way, and still build a common front? I mean, I can easily think of West Philippine Sea as one. I can also easily think of, do you want another Duterte back in power? Like that will be a nightmare situation for civil society. You want
Pero
another red tiger
at
in
this point,
Malacanang?
if I may suggest, he has to be a populist president. But this time around, on the side
Good
of
populist.
more progressive approach.
Yeah.
Right.
Baka
True.
he needs to, for example, alam mo yung mga gut level issues na gusto ng mga tao. So,
Exactly.
this time around, I have to somehow
Go all
talk
in
to
na.
the
Yeah.
to my closest friends, no? Kasi di ba mayroong advisor ang private sector. Baka mag-create ka rin talaga ng advisor mo for this group and
Labor
support for
groups,
the
yeah.
for the legislation, no, tacitly, no. So, yan yung mga tingin ko na pwedeng gawin, no? Para at least magkaroon ng pagkakataon din talaga na maging
Do you have a model for this during Pinoy? Was Ronald Llamas doing that? Sorry, I'm just. You guys know more than me about these things. Like, does he need a Ronald Llamas type of figure to do that? Let's say, okay, I'll push it. Let's say Trillanes, after the 1-year ban, is in the cabinet. You think Senator Trillanes could play that role? I'm already thinking out loud here, right?
Well,
Bakit
these are good people. These are good people.
Well, I'm
Ronald
just trying to
Llamas
think it
and
out loud.
Senator
Yeah.
Trillanes, they are very good people.
Yeah.
So I believe they have
People who have
very
the
much
same-
contribution in the
same
government.
character.
I'm just trying to think this.
If there be a point,
yeah.
kung gusto nila.
Kung
Pero
gusto nila.
siguro talungin din natin
No,
sila.
no, of
kung
course,
gusto
we're not
nila yan.
commanding.
Yeah.
We're just thinking. I'm just trying to see how can this work.
Pero
It has to
these
be
are
someone.
good people, Just to register that statement.
Of
And
course.
they're only good. They're very great people, and they have really heart and mind to the masses.
Sa yung love for
Important yan.
country, beyond question yan. Sa
And intelligent, tactically speaking, yeah.
Yeah, but I think PBBM in fact can work within the current apparatus of the government to fortify his position.
Okay.
Just to answer your question.
Please.
Tapos na yung political payback to
yung
those
honeymoon
people
period niya, wala
who
na.
helped him
To win, yeah.
win in the elections. This is already the second half. Now is to come out big, no?
Yeah, yeah.
There are specific issues that you can address. Ako lang, and this is just from where I'm coming from, should take seriously about what's going to happen to local governments as a result of Mandanes Garcia.
Right.
Diba? Kasi
Fiscal issues very important.
For a time he was, I think he was chairman of the Committee on Local Government in the Senate.
Yeah,
So it's something that's
no.
natural to him. So what happens now after Mandanes
Yeah.
Garcia? So do we push through with the reforms? And that could be a major legacy. Isa pa, what are we going to do with disaster response?
That's yan. Yeah,
Okay,
good point. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Right now, it's the agency that is in charge of disaster response would probably be OCD or NDRRMC, which is not really a permanent line agency. So, should we talk about the creation of an agency akin to FEMA in the United States? So, yun yung mga pwede natin pag-usapan, and that can be a legacy project for BBM.
That's a very good point. Sherwin, you.
Ako, legacy building mode na dapat si Presidente. And I believe na yun yung when he delivered his SONA, I think na meron siyang ganung sense, no?
Right.
But ako naman, nung tinitingnan ko yung mga pronouncements niya during the SONA, feeling ko marami siyang inopen na opportunities kung paano i-build yung kanyang legacy. So for example, aside from yung sinasabi ni Dean Gary tsaka ni Dean Ed sa civil society and local governments, infrastructure projects, ang daming matatapos within his term. Diba? Yung, for example, yung subway. Partially mag-o-open yan. Yung MRT-7.
Very partially. It looks like very partially, unfortunately.
Palagi niyang binimension ito And kailangan ma-deliver ito bago siya bumaba or mag-operate partially para maipakita niya na, of course,
So Vince Dizon is his guy.
Mm.
I mean, that's the one guy, I mean, that's his star so far, right?
Yeah.
Vince Dizon.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. Yung sa education, di ba, na sinasabi niya na phase 4 na kami, phase 5 na kami ng interconnectivity. So, anong i-expect ng mga bata dyan, ng mga magulang, ano? So, ang dami niyang pwedeng buksan na opportunity para ma-cement yung kanyang legacy. Of course, alam naman natin yung strong stance niya sa West Philippine Sea, no? Although Dizon, hindi niya masyadong
But I think it's because of the ASEAN chairmanship. He doesn't want to come off too away from the rest of us.
Alam naman natin yung nangyayari. Stronger yung response ng Philippines ngayon kaysa nung the past administration. So, siguro makikita natin na unti-unti na lalo pang pinapalawig ng gobyernong ito yung kanyang stance sa West Philippines.
That's very important. Dian, I want to talk to you also. I mean, it is the sense of urgency that this is his legacy years. But it's also a sense of urgency that his family could face another exile in 2028 if Duterte's come back. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. This is not a normal legacy years. This is like a make it and then you want to survive it afterwards, right? And he's the only one who could face a second exile in Philippine history, right? I mean, the trauma is, I'm sure, there. So basically, we're telling him it's not just urgent, it's existential.
Yeah. It's already in the doorstep.
So how can you see him building a new, let's say, united front, if that's possible, in his next 2-3? I mean, should that be the way, basically, right? Yeah.
All the more na kailangan pakinggan yung
LGUs and
civil society.
Yeah.
And give concessions. Because they're not just going to be happy meeting the president. They want concessions. So what you're saying is that dapat satisfied na yung iba, they got their share of the pie. Now it's time to give it to the rest to build a bigger coalitional politics.
Tsaka yung brand di ba? I mean, siya na nga nagsabi, di ba, na hindi nalalaman ng mga tao yung karamihan ng ginagawa ng gobyerno,
yes.
Di ba? So ngayon, niya dapat i-build yung brand na yun. No? Kaya any attack on that brand would be treated negatively, di ba? Kung, for example, may excel siya, incoming na papalit na gobyerno, di ba? That would be seen as a witch hunt, no? Something negative. No?
Yeah.
Last part, but this is very important part, which says that also for the discussion later on we're going to have with our friends from the survey agencies and all based on the numbers. One argument is that he doesn't seem to have a credible candidate to succeed him in 2028. It looks like the two strongest candidates come from either the Duterte side, it could be Sara, it could be Bongo, I don't know, whatever, or it could be someone like Lenny, or Bam, or even Risa, right? Does he have a candidate? Again, I know I got a lot of bashing, probably the petition has something to do with that, is General Torre, couldn't he be the ultimate dark horse here? I know I'm gonna, like people are like half laughing at this, but I'm just saying, you never know, this is Philippines, right? Well, isn't he like kind of playing his cards well? I mean, he was star of the night that day. I mean, you could see everyone's gravitating. He could be the second Mindanaoan president, or at least he could be vice president in a Uniteam ticket, a counter Uniteam. I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Because the president needs a standard bearer. Yeah. Obviously, Erwin Tulfo also comes to your mind. A couple of other cabinet members are positioning, but Erwin Tulfo. Well, Rafi is not admin, right? Yeah. But the thing with Erwin kasi is, lose or win pa rin siya kasi he still has another 3. For Rafi, it's quite a tricky situation. And Erwin is very young. He ran under Alianza. So I can see Erwin making a very strong sense also as a standard bearer. So do you think what are the best options for the president? Or should he do Arroyo? Like my Villa Arroyo, my Gibo? Like, how do you see this? Because speaking of existential in 2028, kung most likely a Bongo or a Sara, and not to mention an Amy Marcos in the mix, ang kalaban mo, then you have to be smart about who you're supporting and building in next 2-3 years.
At this point, let's ask our survey friends from the survey firms to do the survey para makita natin.
Pero heuristical, okay, sige na. Okay.
Well, my sense lang there is that the president should make a careful choice about and conscious decision to consolidate support.
Right.
Kasi obviously, in his frame of mind and looking forward, he's really avoiding another Duterte presidency kasi nga it's not going to augur well for him. So
it's a second exile,
how do you sort of like prevent that from happening? I think the key is for him to consolidate support.
But consolidate support behind who?
Behind the other groups that are willing to take on that challenge. No?
Should he be open to support even a pink candidate?
Why not? Why not? No? That's also within the realm of possibility.
Wouldn't that alienate some of his own guys who are
You know,
positioning?
any kind of decision in politics would alienate
Someone.
some group,
Right.
especially in this day and age where everyone is so sensitive about decisions. But you pick your poison and then go with it.
I mean, Senator Trillanes has been very open about this, right? That you need a united front to beat the return of
And
Duterte.
remember, politics is an art of possible. So,
And addition,
Yeah.
game of addition, yeah.
so that's it.
Ba't parang ayun yung sagutin niyo? This part is important! This is important! Okay, sige. Ano na lang, huling na lang.
Contempt kami.
Oh my, parang I feel very alone. I feel very alone in this struggle. Baka naman gusto niya sabihin, I stand with Richard Haydar, no? But what parang gagamitin din ang kabila yan. Okay, no. Okay, how are you feeling about Bam and Kiko? Okay, I'll put you in trouble in that sense. Minority, majority, they seem to be, they're not on the same in the same block, but they seem to be voting similarly. Risa, Bam, and Kiko, right?
For now, but
for now.
I think it's too early to tell. It's too
Same
premature to
statement.
tell.
So okay, let's talk about that. What are your concerns? What are your reassurances? I need to get something. I need fireworks. Kasi nagiging BBM din kayo. Mr. Nice Guy kayong tatlo eh. I need fireworks. Content yan. No. No, let's talk about it. Senate, kamusta?
Sa kalabasan naman ng kulay yan as we go.
Okay.
Diba?
Kakalaman.
Too early pa naman. Alam naman natin yan. It's too early. Kaya sabi nga ni Dean Ed kanina, too early to tell. So all of us right now should carefully watch,
Right.
listen to the statement, and of course, also use our political intelligence.
Right.
What could have been a perfect attempt sana to try to sharpen our analytical senses would be the impeachment. Kasi they would be forced to reveal their cards. I mean, I'm talking about the senators. Had the impeachment pushed through, or if it will ever push through, they'll be forced to make a position on the issue.
I have the skeptic in me says, oh, it's so easy now to suddenly be pro-trial when you know the numbers are not there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very low benchmark, right? Me is more, my read is more like, okay, you have Blue Ribbon by Marcoleta. You have Media by Robin Hood Padilla, right? These are here, you have Justice with Cayetano, right? There could be some very interesting hearings that could happen in the coming months and all, right? Some would even say could be weaponized in a certain direction.
Sure.
And then if you're part of majority, are you in a position to go and bash them? You know what I'm saying?
We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see.
And the other thing I wanted to say is like, I don't know if you also believe this, but the intel I got even before Politico came out with the report was some were actually hoping and thought that Soto came very close to turning the table 2 votes short. I heard it could have been even, and that it looks like, and I understand, maybe the president didn't want to create a drama like yung nangyari kay Pantaleon Alvarez and all. Baka magtaas kilay someone. So maybe that's the reason. So one way also of not answering my question is to say, but it's also too early to say if Cheese will stay as the Senate president, right? Because it could be a very
Well,
fluid
today may
situation.
statement dyan si Senator Jingo Estrada na yung stability ni
leadership.
ni Senator Cheese as president of the Senate is not really that stable.
So he admitted.
So, totoo yung intelligence report.
So totoo yung intelligence report. And totoo na Soto.
Narinig ko na rin yan.
Exactly.
A few votes away.
Yeah. It was very close. Very close. I think the president's instinct, Mr. Nice Guy, was, I don't want drama. Because it ruins the whole... Kaya nga, inanalyze natin yung SONA eh. It looks like the state of mind, let's just avoid anything. And like, because it would be really a big drama if suddenly Cheese is walk out siya or he's there looking bad. You know what I'm saying? It will look bad. And then like Soto is there but not Cheese, you know. Really, really interesting times. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that fantastic discussion and for being very Mr. Nice Guys. I didn't get as much fireworks as I wanted, but thank you for your solidarity. For standing with me. Talagang buhay na to. Thank you so much, din. Maraming salamat. Salamat, Sherwin.
Thank you.
And salamat din.
Nice to see you
God
again.
bless. Maraming salamat, guys, for joining us for this latest episode. Yes, we also talk about President BBM because like sometimes people forget we have because he's such a nice guy. Some people they rather talk about the controversial figures. But sa susunod na episode, we're gonna talk about actually Mr. Nice Guy's numbers are going up, including also Martin Romualdez, while Sara Duterte may avoid a trial in the meantime, but she may not avoid trial in the eyes and hearts and minds of the Filipino people. At least, that's what certain surveys suggest. Pag-usapan natin yan in the next episode ng FYI series.